Hey everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
You may remember us from such podcasts as Anomaly.
And Anomaly Questionable Movies.
And today we present you an episode of Anomaly, or
Anomaly Questionable Movies. Oh my God, Dan, I pronounced it properly. I mean, it took talking a little slower with a little more precision and attention. But I'm going to say it again. Let's see if I can do it. Anomaly Questionable Movies. Or Anomaly Questionable Movies.
So make sure you're sitting down, strap yourself in, and we got a heck of a movie to talk about today. I also finally the details of the John Jost Blake Eckert episode finalized today. So I know I've been teasing that for a while, and I guess this is that's our sweeps week. Is like 4 dudes on couches over Zoom instead of your usual 2 dudes on couches over Zoom. Anyway, today we watched the 1993 mockumentary film Fear of a Black Hat, written and directed by, looking at the internet, Rusty Cundieff.
Cundieff?
Somewhere, I mean, we made enough guesses. One of those has to be right.
It's like Cardiff, but not spelled anywhere near like Cardiff, except that it starts with a C and ends with an F.
Yeah, and let's see, what other movies did he directed? He directed Tales from the Hood, Sprung, Movie 43, and Tales from the Hood 2. I don't believe I have seen any of those.
I've seen Movie 43, and that's not something to be proud of. Although it's possible he only directed one of the sketches.
Okay.
It's a sketch movie. It's like, did you ever see?
Oh, it's like not another teen movie. It's one of those like bad, like parody a minute. Kind of like Airplane style, but like not good.
No, it's separate sketches. So did you ever see Kentucky Fried Movie?
No, but so the one before Airplane.
That's the one before Airplane. So it's a whole series of sketches, and there are some running gags. And so this has a series of sketches and an overall, what do you call it when you have a story wrapping around
a movie?
Yeah, the kind of whole. No, but I mean, it's something that's giving it. Let's pretend that there's a little bit of plot to this. There's a better word than a rapper. But speaking of.
Speaking of rappers, yeah, I can't think of the word. Anyway, we watched Fear of a Black Hat, which is one of 2 films which have, I believe, one of only 2 films which has really tried to do the premise Spinal Tap, but rap. The other film being CB4 or Cell Block 4, written by Chris Rock. We were debating which one to watch today. I have not seen CB4. I will have to watch it at some point because I'm going through all the Phil Hartman movies and he's in that. But instead we decided to watch Fear of a Black Hat, 1993. This is a movie with a lot of very funny moments that doesn't seem to. It's a little unfocused.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I didn't get the sense of a cohesive vision. It was kind of like a lot of gags strung together.
Okay.
It wasn't quite sure what exactly it was saying about hip hop music. When it got something funny, like when he's pointing out all the ice rappers in the corner of the room, like that's Ice-T, and that's Ice Box, and that's Ice this, and that's like that. That was really, there were gags here and there that were really funny. But I think by kind of not narrowing the focus on the target, it kind of missed a lot, or it seemed like very inconsistent. Like we have these guys kind of going from being like a stand-in for Chuck D to being a stand-in for Ice Cube to being a stand-in for Prince Paul from De La Soul. All these guys with like vastly different styles, which makes it so that the characters don't. I feel like the characters don't really stand out very much. Like we're kind of always, the director's always kind of addressing them as a clump outside of like small moments.
All right. I mean, I could see it in terms of, okay, it's a series of gags, and it's a series of, it's parodying the different rap groups and the different styles and all that, but you're looking for don't have them parody all those different groups. You're looking, okay, if they just parodied one group or one or two groups, is that what you're looking for? Or
Well, I think it just sort of, as a movie, it makes the characters very uneven. It makes the points that they're making kind of uneven. Like, I think it probably would have worked as just an outright sketch movie. It would have worked better as just an out and out sketch movie.
okay.
Because like I noticed a lot of the stuff that was in the kind of outtakes reel in the credits was as funny or funnier than a lot of the stuff that was in the movie proper.
Well, and that's the going back to the how a movie wasn't very good. It has
Right.
outtakes during the credits, which I don't think was quite the case here. But well, here, do you want to describe what the movie is?
Oh, okay. So it's a mockumentary about the rise, fall, and eventual reunion of a band called NWH as opposed to NWA, which stands for N-word with hats.
I was wondering how you were going to handle that. So well handled.
And I think a lot of what drew me to this movie was there was inevitably going to be a Men Without Hats gag. They went there. I was satisfied. I got what I wanted out of the experience. The rest is gravy.
Okay.
But they refused to go on stage without hats because then they would just be men without hats, but like much less Canadian. But yeah, that was I don't know. You seem to have stronger feelings about this movie than I do.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like I found it funnier or more enjoyable than you did. Although I might have also had, I want to say lower. Maybe I had lower expectations, or that wasn't expecting the kind of coherence that you're looking for. I was looking for a whole bunch of a whole series of gags parodying rap and more, but primarily focusing parodying rap. So I was satisfied. In fact, I was there were times I was like, oh, what are they making fun of right there? What are they making fun of and embracing?
Oh yeah, as a time capsule, it was great. Like
yeah.
all of these kind of ridiculous parodies of like there's the Granny says beat yo ass or something like that instead of Mama said knock you out.
Yeah. Which is the one where I was saying to you, I'm like, what is that video? What is that? I know that. I know exactly what they're making fun of, and I can't remember the name. So sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of I think the music video parodies are some of the best parts of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Like they get the De La Soul look and sound down perfectly. I mean, I think in some places, honestly, the music is almost too good for the jokes to land because it almost like the hip hop industry, especially in the mid 90s, was so ridiculous that it kind of resisted parody. So I don't know, it's almost like the movie couldn't decide whether these guys were actually good at making music or not.
Well, a few of the songs were actually like, those could be released on as a legitimate.
Oh yeah, if you put those together as an EP, that's better than like probably 80% of the like random rap cassette whatevers that I found on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, they were good songs.
Yeah, and I think like the Peanuts song like kind of got it across. I feel like the song parodies weren't quite outlandish enough
Okay.
to land in some cases.
Okay. They were too close to the real thing.
Yeah, like it wasn't like I feel like a good song parody video, it has to be kind of, you have to push it like way into the extreme because music videos as they are pretty ridiculous. Like Weird Al and UHF I feel like is one of the best like music video parody movies. Like there's just a lot of music video parodies jammed into that movie.
But speaking of movie 43, that's the kind of movie I meant. So there's like UHF is really, it's a bunch of sketches and then there's a story holding it all together.
Right, it's like a weak story, but it's like enough to get from point A to point B.
Yeah. So imagine that, but with a weaker story and terrible sketches. But at least the weak story that holds it together has Dennis Quaid. It's got a bunch of famous actors in the different sketches, and they're just it's just vulgar. Like it's not funny. I don't have an issue with vulgar per se, but that's all it is.
Right. And I can kind of see like this movie, there are some very funny parts, but yeah, there's just like I didn't get the sense of a strong directorial vision.
Okay, so it's piecing all these different gags, and some of them were longer gags than others. Like some kind of ran throughout, but it was piecing putting all these pieces together as opposed to one coherent movie where you get to know the characters. I'm trying to think of parodies, and of course, the number one that comes to mind is Blazing Saddles. Because I was like, well, you don't get to know the characters. They're gonna like, it's just jokes. Like, no, actually, you take Blazing Saddles, and actually, the two main.
Well, I think Blazing Saddles has like a very coherent worldview, and there's things that like thematically it's extremely coherent. Like it keeps going into, lies that the US told itself about race relations, like false representations of the Old West, and like body gross out humor. And it uses all those things, and it brings across like this very clear political perspective and stance on US history through the gag. So I feel like it holds together. Even though it goes off into these tangents, I also think the jokes are a lot better in Blazing Saddles, which granted, that's not really a fair criticism of most movies.
Right.
But
it's the Citizen Kane of parodies.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's
with Airplane being the Godfather.
Yeah. And I mean, like parody movie, and the thing is, like the people who've done the best TV parody, like the best TV sketch comedy shows outside of Monty Python, have produced like not very good sketch movies. Like a feature-length set of sketches is a very difficult thing to pull off.
A series of sketches, not okay. I was thinking of you take Saturday Night Live, and they've been several movies that.
I mean, most of the Saturday Night Live movies haven't been very good,
right? But is that
like really patchy?
So the SNL movies have been mostly they took a sketch or a character from Saturday Night Live, and they made it into an hour and a half long, because they're not that long, right? So they turned into an hour and a half long, basically giant sketch. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about a series of sketches?
No, I'm talking about like Brain Candy, the Kids in the Hall movie,
I saw
right, which wasn't very good. The the Mr. Show movie, Run Ronnie Run, which has maybe my favorite Mr. Show joke, but the rest of it is just uneven and not very good.
Okay.
My favorite. Well, I'll save it in case anyone out there hasn't seen the movie, but it involves the phrase "fishing with guns."
Fishing with guns.
There's also some animation at the beginning of that by the guy who did Ren and Stimpy. It's okay.
What's it called?
Run Ronnie Run.
Run Ronnie Run. Okay.
And it kind of follows the this Saturday Night Live style of they take the Ronnie Dobbs character from Mr. Show and just make a feature-length film out of him.
Oh, okay. So
it's bad. It's really bad.
Is it as bad as an SNL movie, or is it worse?
It would be a middling SNL movie, It would be like Coneheads level.
That was a terrible movie.
Oh, I don't know. I watched Coneheads a lot of times when I was younger, but I have not watched Coneheads since I was like old enough to think for myself or understand a movie like Coneheads.
Wow. Oh, and now you've seen the original skits though, right? With James.
No.
You've never seen the original skits?
No, my family just like every Thanksgiving for some reason or another would watch the Coneheads, and it was like a thing every Thanksgiving. For some reason, TBS would play Coneheads. We would all gather around the television and watch Coneheads like it was It's a Wonderful Life or something.
Wow.
So I don't remember much of the movie because we're talking I was like 4 or 5 years old or something, but yeah. I've probably seen Coneheads 5 or 6 times.
That is well, I want to say most unique. That's a terrible phrase, but that is one of the most unique holiday traditions that I'm aware of, and I'm really curious, like where that tradition, how that tradition started. Like, what was the source of that? Do
I
you think?
think my dad just caught it on TV one year and would, I don't know why, like I can't remember if it was TBS, it might have been TNT. It was one of those networks that had a lot of commercials.
It was a Turner
It was
channel.
Yeah, it was probably TNT because TNT was like half commercials back in the day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, for some reason they would play it every single year, and we would put it on the TV and watch it.
Dan, can you find out? Like, can you ask your dad what led to it? Is that
Yeah, I can ask him that. I don't know. It seems like his kind of movie because he loves like bad SNL movies.
oh, okay.
His favorite movie of all time is The Mummy Returns with Brendan Fraser.
So not the Mummy, but the Mummy Returns,
Yeah.
the sequel.
Or wait, maybe it's The Scorpion King, so it wasn't even the
Oh
one.
my God,
Yeah.
that's the one with the
Yeah, because he saw The Scorpion King and he was like, "Oh my God, you need to see this. It's like the best thing ever." And I was like, how did they give you a college degree, right?
okay. Now it's all making sense. Actually, like what you're saying. Okay. Well, Dan, I have a homework assignment for you. Go watch some of the Conehead sketches on from SNL.
Okay. Are they any good?
They're bizarrely they're funny, but they're very bizarre.
Okay.
Well, no. It's not that they're bizarre. The Coneheads are bizarre. Yeah. They're funny. Have you watched early SNL, like the first few seasons?
I've watched like bits and pieces of it because until a couple years ago, you couldn't, like, they put out those DVD sets finally, so you can actually just like watch full episodes.
Yeah.
Actually, the only beta cassette that I've ever owned in my life was my dad accidentally bought the best of John Belushi on a beta cassette at a
Uh-huh.
garage sale. And I remember I was like trying and trying to get the VCR to play it. But, wouldn't do it because it's not
It's the wrong size, and
the wrong tape, right? And yeah, that
you
was
never watched it.
I never ended up seeing it, but I've seen some of the YouTube
Okay.
snippets that are here. I've seen like the samurai in the deli sketch.
Okay.
I should probably watch the first couple of years.
No Coke, Pepsi. Did I do the joke right? No
Something
Coke.
like that.
Wow. Oh, you've missed out on Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray.
Well, I saw a lot of them in movies.
Yeah. No, but I mean
Like I saw Stripes when I was pretty young. I saw Fletch. I remember looking at the VHS box for Fletch at Hollywood Video. This must have been, I think I was like 5 or 6, and I was like, "Oh my God, all 3 of his names are Fletch." That's the funniest thing I've ever heard, and I like begged my parents, like, I want to see this movie Fletch. Like
uh-huh.
anything that can come up with something as funny as a guy having the same name 3 times has to have inherent value. Of course, I realized I was wrong. Terrible fucking movie. I could even tell when I was like 6.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so I saw that one. I saw Stripes. I saw Meatballs. Did I see any other? I saw Coneheads. I
But you
think
never,
I saw Wayne's World at some point.
which might be the only SNL sketch turned into a movie that was any good. I don't know if you liked it, but
I remember it being fun.
yeah, which is hard to say for most of the others.
Yeah, most like sketch comedy movies do not. It's a really difficult genre to pull off. Yeah, because I'm like trying to think of. I mean, I guess you could almost say that like the Pee Wee Herman movie was, because like so much of it was centered around the Groundlings cast, but it's not really structured like a sketch movie because you have a protagonist,
Right.
you have a clear narrative.
It's got a very strong story.
Yeah, it has a very strong story, even if it like takes a bunch of detours.
Yeah, which is fine. Oh, that's the way. It's kind of the way you were describing Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, and it has a very strong perspective. Like Pee Wee, we have a strong understanding of Pee-wee as a character. So when like gags have to play off of Pee-wee, we have that like solid foundation that the gag is playing off of, so it works.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think when you have like a more cipher type character makes it difficult because the audience doesn't know how to read the joke.
A more what kind of character? Cipher?
Like a cipher,
Oh,
like
okay.
a character that doesn't have strongly defined traits or even like mannerisms. Like if you can't flesh out the character as through the character through motivations or what they want or this that or the other thing, you can at least have them say something weirdly the same way a lot of times, or like make them move some kind of unusual way.
Actually, did they do anything like that in this movie? Maybe that's the I can't think of anything.
Well, okay, there's the running gag where there's the obvious nod to Spinal Tap where all of NWH's managers get shot,
Uh-huh,
and like how the drummer gets killed like over and over again in Spinal Tap.
right.
I think was Spinal Tap the first like repeated, no, I guess like the first repeated death gag is like Tom and Jerry or something like that. But
But I mean, Tom and Jerry wasn't really repeating, right? Each cartoon, each
yeah,
episode.
it would like re-rack. It wasn't like I mean I'm thinking like Kenny on South Park,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing. And I
Right.
think the drummer dying in Spinal Tap might be the first instance of that I can think of in movies like that. The kind of broad structure of that gag
Uh-huh.
appearing.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I'm trying
they,
to.
they, they have a reference to that with the manager dying. You have the one guy who keeps wanting to say like who they shot or like that they shot their old manager, and the other two guys are like, yo, shut up. And that's like a repeating gag. That's not exactly like, it doesn't establish his character that well though.
Yeah, the first time that I really got a sense for his character was when somebody else was describing it, and just I forget how, but him being more peaceful or like gentle. And I didn't pick up on that for the first half of the movie until somebody said that. Because maybe that's part of they didn't have they had identifiable traits, but they weren't very strong. There was nothing that stood out, something more extreme that and that was funny, but that helped identify them as a specific, unique character or
Yeah,
person.
and I think a lot of scenes when they couldn't figure out how to end a scene, like the Muppets does this a lot, but I think the Muppets, because the puppeteering's so good, it can kind of work. Like on a puppet program, this is like a chance to show off the puppets. On a live action thing, though, it's just sort of a way of admitting, I don't know how to end this sketch, but like people start arguing, they start fighting, and then you cut away.
Uh-huh.
And there's like at least 3 or 4 times that happens in this movie.
Okay.
Just like
Right.
scene happens, tensions escalate, there's a beating.
There's a standoff with
It's
guns.
supposed to be the gag, and like the beatings are not I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for like physical humor in this film that were not taken.
Uh-huh. But I also felt a little bit like the beatings didn't feel. So again, maybe this wasn't coherent or consistent, or it. The movie seemed to suggest that they weren't actually from the hood. Right? It was they never admitted to where they came from, and they were giving all these reasons for it. But which made me think, okay, they probably came from some really wealthy suburb, which they call out one of the someone in a rival band
Right.
group for having gone to prep school, and they show that he was the yearbook editor and stuff like that. So, but I was expecting that they actually had that kind of background, the way they were talking about it, and that they were
Right, and they never make a choice with it, which I think hinders a lot of the gags later, because you have to like establish something about the character for something to seem ridiculous later on.
and because I thought, oh, sorry.
But like that thing where the two rap groups like almost start shooting at each other in the elementary school, which we should talk a little more about that later.
Uh-huh.
That was legitimately ridiculous because at the very least you have like these guys who are completely oblivious to the situation.
Uh-huh.
You have the school principal who is aware of the situation and is like trying to kind of get everything back on the rails. Like there's the point where they show like the ridiculous prep school pictures of the one guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, yearbook book editor. Yeah, see, like you can become anything.
Yeah.
That worked, and I feel like that would have been even funnier if they were acting that way, but they'd come from a prep school.
NWH.
Yeah.
Right. So if we found out at some point, because I was expecting that, I don't know what would have made the gag better if we learned about that before or after, but that they were pretending to be, somebody that they weren't. But then they do the beatings, that they beat up several people behind closed doors, literally. But we see a little bit of that.
Vanilla Sherbert.
But they beat up Vanilla Sherbert after he was a white rapper who says some stuff that he shouldn't. Uses the N-word multiple times with them while he was showing them his admiration. He's a huge fan. But that didn't sit right.
I felt like that also, like, it didn't go as deep as other sketches I've seen on the same topic. I feel like there was at least one sketch. I got to rewatch In Living Color. I never got through. I have the first 2 seasons on disc.
Okay, but you watched some of them?
Oh yeah. There's some really funny stuff in there, and I mean, even there, like the Jim Carrey Vanilla Ice parody cuts to the heart of the matter and makes a much deeper criticism than just like, oh, this guy's oblivious and he's going to say the N-word in front of people in a socially awkward situation. The Jim Carrey Vanilla Ice thing, he's like, I'm white and I'm capitalizing on a trend that's currently rising. And he does the silly Jim Carrey thing where his pants split at the end, blah, blah, blah. But, it's making a point about it. And I think it's like a deeper point, or like the Mr. Show, what is it, 2 + 1 - 1 sketches. You ever see?
No, I haven't seen.
Okay, so it's like Bob and David's fake R&B band, and they do this ridiculous music video for the song called "Ew Girl Ew." And then it cuts to the what is it, like the white people appropriating Black Culture Network. And they're getting interviewed, and like Bob Odenkirk's just sucking on this giant lollipop, and he's like, yeah, me and Pootie T, we've been influenced by a lot of white artists who've been influenced by Black artists. Some of the greats, like Mr. Vanilla Ice, like Mr. And it kind of it brings up, it cuts to the chase a lot quicker than I think this movie does.
Okay.
Which I think that was also like a bit of an issue is I think it wasn't like, I mean, not that like a good parody movie has to be mean spirited, but it has to be like, there has to be a target and you have to clearly go after the target. And I feel like the target kind of kept shifting here, and it kind of wanted to say a little bit about everything, but it kind of didn't manage to get across what it was saying about everything. I mean, everything as it pertains to hip hop in the early 90s. So, a very small window of everything.
You know what the best part of the funniest thing from In Living Color was?
What?
You've got a show that has a fair number of people of color in it. It's, written and produced by a person of color or people of color. And its biggest star is the white guy. Like Jim Carrey is the one that made, the billions of dollars or whatever. So, I mean, I'm sure the Wayans and the Wayans brothers became big.
Yeah, the Wayans brothers did decent.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like doing better. And have you heard anything about Arsenio Hall in the last like 80 years?
No, right. He disappeared fairly quickly.
Which is weird too, because like since Arsenio Hall, I can't think of like, or I guess Trevor Noah is like the first major Black late night host since Arsenio Hall that I can think of.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else. Yeah, I'm not sure. There are a lot of parodies around this time, and like, to be more precise, there were a lot of, I don't know how to call it, black parodies, or that sounds horrible. But parodies that focused on black movies and black culture, as opposed to most movies were by and about white people, by, about, and starring white people. We got I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. I'm trying to remember some others. But I don't know what my point was about that. But have we seen much of that since? Actually,
Not that I mean, like, so you have like the Tyler Perry movies.
but those aren't parodies.
No, but they're kind of sketch like. They come out very frequently.
Okay, okay.
I feel like it's catering to a lot of the same audience.
I'm wondering. I'm trying to decide if I agree, but I would have to.
Maybe I don't know. I
Uh,
haven't watched a lot of Tyler Perry movies, but I know he makes a lot of money.
yeah, yeah. I've
How many must
watched.
you watch of those things?
I've watched a little bit of a few of the Medea movies, and I don't know if I can say any more about them because it won't be nice. Though I never saw the first one. Did you ever see a
Diary of a Mad Black Woman?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Because I don't think she's supposed to be that kind of parody character. The movie's a little more serious, isn't it?
Well, I kind of thought she was supposed to be. She's just like a like more out there take on the Eddie Murphy like Mrs. Clump character.
In the other movies or in the first one?
Like the Eddie Murphy Nutty Professor movies, he plays like the fat grandma character.
Yeah. No. I mean, do you mean Medea in all the Medea movies or in the first one in Diary of a Mad Black Woman?
I don't really know a whole lot about that series. That was just the impression I got when Medea first became like a cultural phenomenon. It was like, oh, okay, it's some other guy doing the Ed Murphy like old fat black lady thing.
But without Tyler Perry playing every other character. But yeah, okay. Now I really want to watch Diary of a Mad Black Woman. I really want to see that now. I remember when it came out. I don't know why I didn't go see it. I remember reading
When
reviews.
that came out, that like immediately went to the bottom of the IMDb bottom 100.
Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Yeah, it was like in the bottom 50.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first reason I ever heard of it was like because I would try to keep up with anything that was in the bottom 100 on IMDb.
Uh
And this was like the period of my life when I saw From Justin to Kelly, and
huh.
God, that wasn't even the worst one. What was the worst one? I mean, And Be Real, that was really bad.
I don't know anything about that one.
And Be Real, it's like this girl in the hood. I'm making air quotes here. Like decides that she's going to become a great rapper because she's inspired by Anne Frank. And it's just like a lot of questionable Anne Frank scenes, questionable, like it's just a bad level on so many, or it's a bad movie on so many levels. That one deserved to be on the bottom 100. You got served. You got served. I don't think, like, I'm glad it was on the bottom 100, but oh my God, I love that movie. Have you ever seen You Got Served?
I might have. I'm trying. Could you remind me what it is?
It's a dance movie where like these
Oh yes.
dance crews, they like keep running into each other and like because of some kind of weird honor code, they have to get into like a dance off every time they see each other, and whoever wins the dance off is always like, you got served. And it's just one of the most ridiculous movies I've ever seen. The dancing's great. The dancing is like exceptionally good. But like in terms of writing, it's so bad it's good.
You Got Served.
Mhm.
Okay. Shoot, I'm trying to think of what's the cheerleading movie I'm trying to think of. It's not a democracy, it's a cheerocracy. Bring It On.
Huh?
Bring It On. Bring It On. Oh, Election's a great movie. Have you ever seen Election?
Mhm.
Oh, what do you think of that?
I saw it a really long time ago. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Matthew Broderick is great as like the creepy old teacher.
Yeah. Well, there's the friend who's he goes all out. Yeah, but Matthew Broderick is creepy, and as we learn, unethical. Or unethical or immoral. I can't remember. They talk about morals versus ethics. I can't remember what his actions are supposed to be. But
that
anyway,
would be one to rewatch at some point.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah, but all right. Now it was probably in my top 10 for a very long time.
Election?
Yeah. I wonder if it's in my top 17. I don't have a 10. I have like 17 now. Now I have to put it in there with a question mark. I have to reassess it because let's see. I'm pulling up my list right now. I actually keep it because I forget about movies like that one. And I did put it in the list. Okay, it's my top 20.
Well,
Maybe one day I need to split up. Well, this was sort of like my top 10 favorite movies from the decade. And how many was it actually? Or did I actually manage to keep it to 10? Oh,
There was like an honorable mention or two, but you
yeah,
kept it to 10.
I had 10, and then I had some honorable mentions. Right, because I couldn't quite shove them into 10, and I had to have 10 because that's the number that's always used, right? Well, I have my top 20 movies, and Election was in there, and Duck Soup, and Clerks. I mean, Clerks is probably my top 3, but then there's the 20. Three's not enough. Anyway,
Three's a crowd.
What was that? Three's a crowd.
Crowd.
Yeah. So it's a big crowd. Three's
what
a crowd. What was that?
One's a person, two's a couple, three's a crowd.
Oh, now it's a trouble.
Four's a party.
Three's a trouble. So it's not necessarily a crowd. It could be a trouble.
Okay.
But 4 is definitely. What do you say? 4 is a party? Well, let's say 4 is definitely a crowd, and 5 is a party.
Yeah, that's fair.
And 6 is a street party. So when you get to 20, it's a pandemic. But
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah. Too current.
Well, we lived through it, so we get to joke about it. Until I just jinxed it, we better knock on some wood right now.
Yeah. Right, because it's not only we're still in the first wave, and it still isn't totally gone. We're still in the first wave. We just think it crusted. We might have a slight breather, and then get the second wave, which is probably going to be worse than the first wave. Oh, wow, Dan, I don't feel. I'm not laughing right now. I mean, that laughter isn't like haha funny. It's like, oh God, funny.
But yeah, in terms of like black comedies, this is I mean, it was interesting to watch. I think like it's definitely not anywhere near the same league as like Symbiote Psychotaxiplasm.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like very different kinds of movies, but like
what are the okay, go on. Well, I mean, what do they have in common except that they're they've got black directors and writers. Actually, I don't know if the writer is black. I mean, I can never remember the full name, but it's not a parody or a satire.
It's true. It is a comedy film, though.
Yeah, but so's Sleepless in Seattle is a comedy. What do these movies have in common besides they're meant to make you laugh in part? So yeah, that's why I mean putting it in. This is in whether it's as good as, but I think it's in the same category as Blazing Saddles, as Airplane. Again, it's like comparing a random movie to The Godfather and Citizen Kane.
Spinal Tap. Like I don't think this was as good as Spinal Tap. Maybe Cell Block 4 is as good as Spinal Tap. I have not watched it yet.
Yeah, so we definitely have to watch that.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying, I turned to you at one point and I said, how did I not see this movie all these years? Why did I not watch this movie back when it came out? And with Blazing Saddles and Airplane, I didn't have that option. Blazing Saddles, I wasn't even alive, and with Airplane, I was too young. I was old enough for this. I was of age. I mean, maybe the main thing is that I knew it was going to, it's parodying rap, and I wasn't into rap. And I say that on the other hand, recognizing almost, understanding almost all the gags. I may not have been able to name the specific group and the specific song. I mean, I got stuff like the crisscross jokes, or obviously the NWA and
the salt and pepper gag, where it's like parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Yeah, and then I knew, okay, that's salt and pepper. Or there was the Queen Latifah joke name?
Oh yeah, shit, what was the name?
It was like something princess, maybe.
Yeah.
So I was obviously making fun of Queen Latifah, or a name like that. But even though they didn't do any, they didn't parody any of her stuff. Did they parody any female bands? Did any even pop up?
There wasn't really much. Like there's two female characters in the movie. One of them is like the Yoko Ono character that shows up halfway through, and then there's the director of the film within the film, whose last scene in the film is like a slide in the end credits, basically saying that she got knocked up.
Yeah.
Like
by one of the
movies. So this is definitely not like, this is not a Bechdel test movie.
No. There was one point in which the movie within a movie director, interviewer character, and the Yoko Ono character, they actually spoke to each other at one point, but it was mostly about the guy in the band, Tasty Taste, that she was involved with. So that fails the Bechdel test.
Right.
Because they were having, it was two women having a conversation, but it was about a man, so it fails.
Right, and it kind of like doesn't. I mean, I guess that kind of goes back to my earlier point of it doesn't have a viewpoint. So like it wants to get credit for making fun of the band for saying things like bitches and hoes. At the same time, it doesn't want to explore like why is that ridiculous.
Okay.
It ends up kind of embracing that mentality because that's like the only female roles we really see in the film outside of I guess like the filmmaker being there is just kind of a fly on the wall outside of that like couple questions and that slide at the end.
Right. You get her as sort of the I want to say the maybe the only voice of reason in this movie. And yeah, the final joke is she ended up she has what is it? Not Ice Cube, Ice Cube, Ice T, Icebox. Was he Icebox?
Ice Parka.
I forget which ice he was, but yeah, she ends up having his second baby, and maybe they'll get married, something like that. So, but so she ends up being a punchline in a joke about her being a hoe. So the movie actually even falls into the trap of putting women into one of two categories. It starts off before we see the opening credits, and it says this movie, and I forget, it will not contain these words at all, and then it says it will, but bitch and hoe are
right, and they say it like 5 times, and that's the gag.
Yeah, and then they use all those phrases. So and they use these phrases and depictions that are demeaning to women.
It's definitely a product of like that period when there was still some kind of novelty around getting away with saying curse words on television, where like transgression for its own sake seemed to have some kind of power, which I don't think it really does now that everybody's got access to the internet and there's like 8 bajillion like horrific obscene things you could get at a touch of a button, like just sitting in front of you most of your day. It's not quite as exciting when somebody says the word bitch on television or something. Like I feel like Eminem kind of marks the end point of he's almost like this weird nostalgic like, hey, remember the point when media saturation was not such that like me going on TV and saying bitch could be like this shocking thing that you weren't supposed to see.
Wait, why Eminem?
I don't know. I feel like after Eminem, there wasn't like the next big like shock rapper that got huge after Eminem that I can think of. Probably like Tyler the Creator. Tyler the Creator seemed like a throwback to the Eminem stuff, like being shocking and like kind of homophobic and saying a lot of curse words in the most shocking way possible seemed kind of retro and old-timey in a weird way.
Interesting.
And I mean, maybe this is probably more a factor of like how old I am specifically, but the last time I remember that like the culture actually sincerely like giving a shit about any of that stuff was when Eminem dropped.
I don't know. I mean, it was I remember it always, being a big deal, and a lot of rap music and rap stars mired in controversy. How's that? I don't want to say generating or causing a lot of controversy, because a lot of it wasn't. I don't know how much of it was intentionally generating that controversy, whereas versus I don't want to say legitimate statements, legitimate, I don't want to say feelings in the songs, and people being upset about them and upset about the content, rather than intentionally trying to upset people. Or was it necessarily controversy for its own sake?
I don't know. I feel like the 90s were definitely the peak of controversy for its own sake in terms of just like what the cultural archaeology would have to say. Like, you have comic books going gritty without any idea of like why they were going gritty or like what they were trying to say. So they're just sort of like, there's just a lot of blood, guts, and swearing for no particular reason.
Okay.
The same thing with like TV. You start having premium cable networks. They realize that they're big, or well, I guess you're still in the period where premium cable networks think that their only advantage is that they can show cursing and nudity.
Yeah. Okay, well, you said 90s, so go back to the 80s and go back to 80s rap. I mean, there's definitely a lot of it has a message in it. It may be, at least the word, it may be controversial, but there are a lot of messages.
Gangster rap as like, I mean, I'm sure there were gangster rap records from before like 1987, 1988. There aren't a lot of them, and gangsta doesn't really become the dominant form of rap music until like 93, 94, right about when this movie came out, which I think is actually an interesting part of this movie, is that this movie would have been conceived right as kind of one era of hip hop was ending, and then the complete commercial domination of like gangster rap in the mold of Dr. Dre, kind of just like taking over rap radio for like 10 straight years.
What's significant about Dr. Dre?
Well, Dr. Dre is the producer for NWA.
Yeah.
And he kind of he's the guy who was there at the forefront when gangsta rap became like popularized as like the form of like popular rap music.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He's like the guy who introduced Snoop Dogg. The first Snoop Dogg record is all Dr. Dre productions. The Chronic, the Chronic is considered like the kind of definitive gangsta rap record of like the gangsta style, and that came out in I think 1992. So that would have just when they were probably like writing and getting the money for this, that's when the Chronic would have dropped probably.
Okay, but you mentioned NWA. Are you saying that NWA was just swearing and using all those terms just?
So NWA is kind of a transitional group.
Okay.
Like NWA is the first time you have this sort of I guess like noise-based production that defines the early Public Enemy records. So the Bum Rush the Show, which is is it Bum Rush? I think it's Bum Rush the Stage is the first Public Enemy record. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, and Fear of a Black Planet, obviously, which is what this movie was named after. Was named after the 1991 Public Enemy album, Fear of a Black Planet.
Another one that I remember when it came out.
Oh yeah, that's the one that has like Fight the Power, 911 is a joke, like that. That's such a great record.
Fight the power that be, fight the power.
Right, and so like the noise-based production of Public Enemy was kind of using that abrasiveness because it kind of would make you listen to the political messages. Like it was supposed to be hard and forceful because it wasn't fake, and they were giving you like the real news. And
Fight the power plays an important role and do the right thing.
And I think Dr. Dre, I mean, not to say that Dr. Dre's sound is entirely this, just aping Public Enemy. It's not, but it's taking that kind of like hard-edged production and the kind of menace and like danger that it kind of conveys. And he's not using it for political ends. He's using it to just sort of amplify or color this or the kind of lifestyle narratives that came to predominate a lot of rap records after that point.
I want to call it bubblegum rap.
I mean, well, so there is such a thing as bubblegum rap. Bubblegum rap is a bit more like
oh, I didn't realize that. I was thinking of bubblegum. What is it, bubblegum punk?
Yeah, like bubblegum pop. I mean, bubblegum is kind of, there's bubblegum pretty much anything.
Yeah. All right. I didn't realize that there was, but that there was specifically bubblegum rap.
Yeah, like kitty rap. So like, Justin Bieber's rap songs would be bubblegum rap or
Okay.
like stuff like that.
Okay. Very specifically bubblegum gangster rap.
Bubblegum gangster rap, I mean, it would be the poppier side of things where it's like a lot of R&B hooks, not a lot of actual rapping,
Uh-huh.
not very like kind of syrupy beats or
Okay.
like
Okay. And
really
that's
basic sounding boom bap kind of Miami sounding stuff.
okay. Okay. And that's not what you're describing. What when you're talking about when we get.
No. So what I guess I'm saying is that like gangster rap is where the kind of style and posturing of political rap
Mhm.
starts to become more about lifestyle and telling stories. And I think the earliest gangster rap records are some of the best rap records that were ever made. And I think they're too complex as pieces of work, even where it's like hard to entirely categorize them as gangster records.
Mhm.
So like Illmatic by Nas, very gangsta attitude, very gangsta like perspective, I guess, to the narratives on it.
Okay.
But it still has like one foot in kind of the native tongues, Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers kind of sound that had been very popular up to the point when gangsta just sort of took over everything.
Okay.
And this movie is kind of it just is released, it was released at an odd transitional point. I think that probably contributed somewhat to the lack of a concrete perspective, because he's
Mhm.
sort of trying to he's shooting at a moving target.
Got it. There wasn't. It's hard to get a coherence when there isn't when you're not trying to capture something coherent.
Yeah, and I think like if he'd made it a couple years later, when the gangsta trend had sort of hit its ridiculous apex, and you have guys like Chingy all over the radio, or like just every single rap single that comes out is like, yo, I can beat the shit out of people, I'll shank somebody, I've been to prison, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And that I think would have made for a great parody movie, because it's so ridiculous, and you can kind of build off of that
Uh-huh.
in a way that I think like in 1993 you're stuck in this weird period where, in order to talk about the current state of hip hop, you somehow have to reconcile De La Soul with NWA. Right, and that's what this movie is forced to do, and it's like nobody could succeed at that, and this movie does not succeed at doing that.
It tries.
It tries, and I don't think anybody else tried that, so to its credit.
Yeah. Um, sorry, that just. Well, it's so funny putting them in the same category, but they're.
That's what the movie does. Like, it literally, the one guy, it's like, oh, I'm not an NWH anymore. I'm gonna dress like Prince Paul, sound exactly like I almost kind of wonder if they got Prince Paul to dub that part over, because it doesn't. It sounded so much like Prince Paul's voice when he's doing like the thing where he's talking about like taking a dump because he's human.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole song, right?
Hmm.
Pretty much. I'm a human being. I can pee and I can take a shit. It's a little it's and all in a very sweet sweet song.
Hmm.
But that also says something. I mean, part of it. But you're talking about a moving target, but you're talking about a style of music that is fairly expansive, and it's all called rap.
Right, and I think that it's a very broad target, and I think in order to make it a smaller target that you could hit in a single movie, you necessarily need to traffic in some like kind of stereotypes and
Uh-huh.
shorthand that's not necessarily going to age very well.
Got it.
Like, I feel like the best hip hop satire of like the hip hop industry that I've ever seen is that show Atlanta that's on FX now,
Yep.
the Donald Glover thing, right? Like that, like the premise isn't that hugely different than the movie we just watched, but somehow Atlanta like is like light years ahead of this, right? Like somebody rises to fame in the rap world with a ridiculous novelty single. In the case of Atlanta, it's Paperboy with Paperboy, all about that Paperboy. Right.
I forget the accent. Wow, I forgot the song.
Yeah, it's like it's a tone parody that's, I think, better than a lot of the ones that were in this movie. But it's like the premise is not that far off, but just sticking with character, being consistent with the character, and having, like, not being afraid to go outside of the kind of tones that traditional parody or satire allow you to go into, yielded such better results. I mean, granted, we're also talking about a movie from 1993 versus a television program that's still technically on the air that came out like 3 years ago. So there was a lot of time in the middle to kind of, learn from various mistakes and other pieces. But
there's another season coming, right, of Atlanta?
Yeah.
I did. Was it really 3 years ago that it came out?
It's been, because there's been at least a 1 year break between seasons, and there's been 2 seasons. So
wait, there's been 2?
Season must, there's a second season.
Did I watch both, or did I just watch one? I might have only seen the first season, not realizing that there was a second one available.
The second season's the one with like Donald Glover and the really creepy Michael Jackson getup.
That doesn't sound familiar. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about that because you should. It was so good.
All right. Let's see. I'm adding now to my to-do list, like not just movies to watch, but my to-do list would have stuff like call Karen, add my college photo to keep pics. So I'm going to add watch. Here, I'm typing it right now. This might actually be, you might be able to hear it on the podcast. Watch season 2 of Atlanta. In parentheses, I can't believe I didn't realize it existed yet. All right. Yeah, that's a great show. So
that show is so good.
But it has it has the characters. They're real people.
The characters are really strongly fleshed out on that show, and it gets a lot of the humor out of just sort of reaping the benefits of having well fleshed out characters and just letting them do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Whereas this film is just sort of like it keeps, anytime that the characters are about to sort of develop into something like that, it's like no, we need to like shove gags in here.
Yeah.
But so I feel like there's other, I mean, I guess the reason I was saying like black comedy films is because I did find this film kind of looking into the canon to see, because I feel like I have not watched, I do not have a necessarily like great or particularly wide grasp of black cinema in the United States. Like I've seen a lot of the big stuff, I've seen like Killer of Sheep.
But you haven't seen anything with Tiffany Haddish in it.
No.
Yeah.
No, I feel like I got to watch a lot of stuff to kind of, this stuck out to me, but I feel like this is not the cream of the crop.
No, it was also I'm trying to think of other we'll call it black comedy movies from that around that time.
I mean, it's not White Chicks.
It's not White Chicks. No.
With the Wayans brothers.
I am embarrassed to say I've seen twice. And I know it was also really popular, right?
What's the one where he's like a midget, where he's like a midget who's pretending to be a baby?
Yeah. Oh, what's that one called? Oh, isn't he on the lam? Is it? He's like he's hiding from the police or something, right?
Right. He's like a jewel thief. It's kind of like a play on the what's that Todd Browning movie where it's like the adult midget that dresses like a child, what the hell is that movie? They go on like a bank robbing spree. Wait, I got at The Frightful 3, I think it's called. That is a funky movie. Todd Browning's the guy who did Freaks.
I don't think I've seen that. By the way,
you ever seen Freaks?
No, but just one thing. Midget is not the appropriate term.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's little person.
Little person.
Yeah. Dwarf isn't a particularly accepted term anymore.
Okay, The Unholy Three.
Is that a movie or that's a?
It's a movie with, or it's actually 2 movies, both by Todd Browning. There's a silent and a talkie version that were made about 5 years apart. And let's see. Apparently, Wikipedia is not up with the times because they're using the M word. 3 performers leave a sideshow after Tweedledee, the M word, assaults a young heckler, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. So it's a ventriloquist, a strong man, and like a grown man that looks like a like small boy. And they decide that because they've met each other, because they're all just like human anomalies, they need to start robbing banks.
Which movie is this?
The Unholy Three.
Okay, all right. So the Wayans Brothers one is Little Man.
Okay. Oh, actually, it's got Lon Chaney in it.
Seriously?
Yeah. Lon Chaney and the Unholy Three by Todd Browning.
Oh, cool. But talking about the category of black comedy, and black comedies. Well, the category black comedy. And in one way it's okay, it's a subgenre. But in another way, it's pigeonholing, and saying, okay, they're not comedies, they're specifically black comedies. Whereas we don't say white comedies; those are just comedies.
Jewish comedy.
A Jewish yeah. What's a Jewish comedy? All right. Well, there's some
Albert Brooks, Woody Allen.
Yeah. Are they
Mel Brooks sometimes?
Right. Are they really Jewish comedy, or are they comedy? Or there's okay, Woody Allen is his own genre.
I feel like Jewish comedies, the DVDs come in like a thicker shrink wrap than the other DVDs.
I don't get it.
Or wait, oh no, oops. Okay, that didn't make any sense.
No,
I got it the wrong way.
You have to explain the joke to me. Wait, I don't.
It was supposed to be a circumcision joke, but I got it backwards, so it makes literally no sense.
Yeah. Something would have to be cut or taken off or missed, like no shrink wrap.
Jewish comedies don't come with any shrink wrap.
Yeah, something like that.
Loose DVD case.
But so going back to what I was saying about the notion of black comedy, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but I go to Amazon Prime, and to Netflix, or I guess it doesn't have to be Prime, and I watch 2 movies with mostly black casts, and boom, the next time that Netflix recommends movies to me, 9 out of the 10 are all predominantly black casts, because apparently,
I think the entertainment industry is like very highly segregated. I guess that's why, because like in the early 90s especially, you have almost 2 completely different production pipelines for like films that were going to be screened in like large black population areas versus large or like general release films in the United States. You have a lot of there's not a lot of sitcoms up to that point where it's like, oh, okay, this is an integrated situation where race isn't a factor. You have like black family sitcoms like Martin or something, and then white family sitcoms like Home Improvement or what have you.
So you've got family sitcoms and then black family sitcoms.
Yeah, and then you also have, I think, film comedies. You have these 2 completely separate streams for whatever reason.
Okay. Oh wait, is that what you meant by segregated? Or
yeah. Like it seems like there aren't a lot of movies that, like, it seems like in order to acknowledge a black audience in these films, especially around this period, it has to be very specifically pitched.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be like the parameters that a lot of these films were being made under. Or if it's like pitched at a general audience, it has to be about white guilt, which I think is like like a lot of the fascination with Do the Right Thing.
Wait, I don't understand. What does Do the Right Thing have to do with white guilt?
Well, I think so.
Wait. Do you mean like what the movie is about, or the response to it, or why it was developed?
It speaks very directly to the idea of like white guilty feelings, and I think it can also be misread because of how it tries to develop all of its characters as kind of like I've definitely come out of that movie with people. I mean, a while ago. I think in the current political climate, the readings would probably be a lot different. But with people kind of saying like, "Oh, we all contribute to the problem." Like they almost went away from it like it was the Paul Haggis Crash movie.
Uh-huh. How I don't understand how you're comparing Do the Right Thing to Crash.
Well, okay, Do the Right Thing is a vastly superior movie to Crash, but there was enough ambiguity in it where I remember having conversations about it with people when I was in middle school and high school, where some people saw it as like, oh, okay, because everyone contributed in some way to ratcheting up the tensions that lead to the kind of riot at the end of it and the trash can getting thrown. It's saying it's everybody's fault. So it's like spreading blame, kind of like how Crash, the moral of Crash is everybody's equally racist.
Uh-huh.
And granted, I don't think that's at all what Spike Lee intended. I don't think that's a particularly deep reading of the film. But the fact that someone could come away with that reading, I think, to me, and also I think the fact that that was, for a long time, that was the sum total of black cinema as it was understood in the like very white town that I grew up in. Like that's the only black movie you'd ever hear about, where it was actually like produced and written, etc. Like I mean, I'd heard of like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, or things like that, but those are they're not products of the black community.
Trying to I can't remember the exact thing that Spike Lee said about the question. What kept, like, one thing that kept coming up when Do the Right Thing came out was whether was Mookie throwing the he was Mookie in that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Was Mookie throwing the trash can at Sal's, in through the window of Sal's Pizza? And when asked about it, he said something like "fuck Sal's Pizza" or "screw Sal's Pizza," or like, why is the focus on that? Yeah, there's so much more going on in the movie, but maybe that goes to Spike Lee.
He overestimated the ability of the audience to.
Wait, I'm not done. Spike Lee makes better movies, or movies that he doesn't realize he's making. So he points and raises issues that he's not, and that I don't think he necessarily intended at times. And so the question that he raised about I don't want to say that's not fair. That's not fair. Because I was going to say the question that he raises with the trash can isn't necessarily something that he intended to do. But I don't think that's fair. I think maybe it's that so many people focused on that thing, and whether the black guy did the right thing or not. But I think part of that is, like, it was pretty clear that what the cops, well, at least what the one cop was doing, or the cops for the most part were doing, was wrong. And one of the cops actually is calling the other guy out and saying, stop it, sort of. But there's the moral ambiguity of questions that it raises about whether it was okay, quote unquote, for Mookie to throw the trash can at Sal's Pizza. Anyways, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, I just wanted to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess what I was going to say is, yeah, he kind of overestimated his general audience in a weird way, because like when he says "fuck Sal's Pizza," as you were saying, he probably just presumed like, oh, this is so obvious that like who gives a shit about a pizza parlor when there's like a dead guy on the street.
Right.
But you show that to a predominantly white audience, and I can report back from having grown up in Whiteville, people do get worried about the well-being of the pizza parlor.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're like, well, it's kind of like what was going on in Ferguson, right? And the people were like rich people, white people, etc. were kind of like, oh, why would they destroy their own neighborhoods? And it's like a tragedy of like urban landscaping going to rot instead of a breakdown of the social contract between the police and the population, or a dead guy in the street.
Yeah, Hakeem, that was his name, right? The guy that gets killed.
Oh, and Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Radio Raheem.
Radio. No,
the giant boom
Radio
box.
Rahim. Okay. Yeah,
Raheem. Yeah, and he gets choked out with the baton.
Right after. Wait, he was playing Fight the Power, right?
That's when Fight the Power plays in the movie. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's a Fight the Power. So I actually just watched that. I don't know, maybe a half a year ago, and it holds up. And it's still, my mind still raises the question of whether he did the right thing. I mean, that's the movie. Do the Right Thing. Like, was throwing the trash can the right thing to do.
Hmm.
And whatever my answer to that is, it's interesting that what you just said about that's what the white audience cared about, and I have to go back and question my own answer.
Well, I mean, the news coverage of Ferguson, so much of it was like, look at this drugstore on fire.
Yeah,
Like that drugstore had the last bag of Doritos in the universe or something.
yeah, yeah.
It, it's weird to think about that movie as like being overly optimistic, but I guess,
The one that we just watched, or Do the Right
no,
Thing,
no, no, I do the right thing.
as optimistic.
Well, yeah, just in the sense that Spike Lee thought that the audience was going to be more humane and receptive than they actually were. And now, 30 years after Do the Right Thing came out, we have the country on the brink of a civil war because one part of the population can't understand why the other part of the population would be pissed off that
Yeah.
somebody cared more about like the outside of a drugstore than somebody's kid.
The way they act, the way they think, they're answering two different questions, and each side doesn't understand that the other is looking at things a very different. It's not just that they're looking at a different way. Is that there's not one question with two answers in it. It's two different questions with a different answer, and the questions aren't related.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the pro-choice versus pro-life. And I said, no, I shouldn't say pro-abortion. I am pro-abortion. I think abortion is a legitimate method of birth control. And it's only, the whole, removing the shame of abortion is a fairly recent thing.
Well, I feel like the pro-choice side could have like gotten ahead of this if they'd branded heavily at the outset as the pro parking spaces party.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, we live in a city. There's never enough parking. There's only one side of the pro-life, pro-choice issue that's going to result in more parking spaces, and it is not the pro-life
Wow.
side.
Wow. Oh my God, Dan, that was offensive in so many ways. Wow. I was gonna go, go further and say, it's not pro-choice and pro-life. It's pro-choice and anti-abortion. But okay, wow, you took it in a very different direction.
I'm just saying branding is 9/10 of the law.
Well, no, but that would make it an unpopular position, because the anti-abortion position would say, look, all they want is to reduce the population so they can get more parking spots.
Right, but then I think once
It's the
people
pro-death
start like seeing the results in the general municipal parking situations,
Yeah.
it sells itself.
Wait, how did we get into abortion? I'm the one that brought it up. I know. Just one thing about Do the Right Thing. Oh yeah, wow, we've strayed so far from Fear of a Black Planet.
Fear of a Black Planet. Yeah, we
NWH. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm getting confused between the real thing and the parody. Who do you think? Who did Spike Lee think his audience was?
And I mean, are you talking about and Do the Right Thing?
Yeah. Or did he made a movie and he didn't care who the audience was?
No, I think he knew I mean, he seems like a pretty savvy guy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he probably saw it because you have like a lot of daytime talk show culture,
Uh-huh.
like at its peak right around then. Like people loved daytime talk shows in the late 1980s.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to get a lot of free publicity for a movie is to sort of if you can phrase the premise of your movie as, hey, let's like talk about this hot button issue right now, but not talk about it directly,
Uh-huh.
you will get on daytime talk shows because that's their favorite thing to do segments on is like, I mean, I'm sure you could probably find talk show appearances from the late 80s where it's like, are black people, Spike Lee comes on to discuss his new movie, Do the Right Thing with Us. Right. Like, and there were a lot of movies like that. I mean, and this is still actually like very much a marketing technique within the film industry. But I guess, I think he was making it for everybody. He wanted it to have a large audience. He wanted it to break out probably beyond the places that would have been showing like She's Gotta Have It or School Days.
Yeah.
Because I don't think either of those really broke out commercially anywhere, like with any of the same kind of impact that Do the Right Thing did.
Yeah, I know. I remember playing at the Art House Cinema when I was in. Was that Seattle? Yeah, that was Seattle. That I played at Art House Cinema there. But that's, that was the extent of it. I don't know that it made it into theaters, or at least not the movie theaters that I went to in predominantly white suburbs. Interesting. Hey, you know what would make a great parody sketch?
What?
Two white guys do a podcast and they talk about rap and black comedy. What do you think? All right, I'm pitching this idea here.
We should pitch it to the whitest kids you know.
Yeah.
Still around. Whatever happened to them?
The whitest kids you know?
Yeah.
No, what I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I have no idea.
Right, because they had a show for a while, and then they and I didn't pay attention to it, and then they just I mean, I guess if you're that white, it's pretty easy to kind of disappear into a crowd once you're done with Hollywood.
All right, so Fear. See, I keep saying it. Oh no, Fear of a Black Hat.
Fear of a Black Hat.
WH is the band's name. The movie is Fear of a Black Hat. That's why I went to Fear of a Black Planet. Okay. I wasn't totally off.
It's a movie that exists probably because somebody made a joke about men without hats at some point, and it turned into a full-length movie. There were great parts. There were less than great parts. I thought it was pretty mediocre.
Dan? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I love that you take an hour and a half of a mostly black cast, a movie about rap, and the highlight of the movie for you is a joke about a white band.
Huh?
The highlight of the movie for you is a joke about a white band.
Wait, you're talking about the ice box, ice?
No, the Men Without Hats.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it's in the title.
Yeah.
I also have a personal history with the Men Without Hats, which I did not go into here.
Oh, all right.
The first interview I ever conducted with anyone was with the lead singer of the Men Without Hats when I was 13.
Really?
Yes.
How did that come about?
So Men Without Hats, for those of you who are not hardcore Men Without Hats fans, so everyone, they had their kind of safety dance period. Then they went grunge. Then they went ungrunge. The grunge album it's pretty rough. I don't recommend it. But they were releasing their reunion / final album called No Hats Beyond This Point. And it had a little velvet rope going into a club on the cover.
I didn't realize they ever left New Wave and went to grunge.
Yeah, they were around for a long time. They didn't have any other hits, but they were around for a long time. Okay, they had Pop Goes the World was I think it made top 30 or 40 in Canada, maybe. I mean, they must have sold a decent number of them, because I do see copies of Pop Goes the World out and about. But
it sold enough where it played on the radio enough that I remember it.
Yeah, and so then they went grunge, and the grunge album it's bad. And No Hats Beyond This Point is it's fun, if you like the safety dance. But yeah, so I interviewed the guy, I sent the guy an email randomly, because I just looked up their website on a whim, because I think I'd only seen, it was the first time I'd ever seen the safety dance music video, because I could download it off the internet. So I was watching all these 80s music videos that I wasn't alive for, and I looked up the website. And the front page was basically hey, help us get rid of this warehouse worth of copies of No Hats Beyond This Point we purchased. Contact me directly. And I thought I was getting their manager, because I was delusional to think that they had a separate manager at that point in their career. But I ended up getting a direct contact from Yvonne. God, I forget his last name, but he was yeah, I'll do an interview for your website, which I believe the website was called thematadorlounge.com.
Does it still exist?
Maybe.
This was yours?
It was my brother-in-law's.
Oh, okay.
He's much older than I am. But
actually, did I ever tell you that I met the other guy in Men Without Hats?
Wait, you did?
Yeah, and I went up to him and I told him that he was the best part of the Princess Diaries.
And on that note, this has been Dan.
And this has been Ron.
This has been abominable,
Abominable.
questionable pronunciation.
There we go. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care.